is yours.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
The Food and Drug Administration,
the Centers for Disease Control,
the Federal Trade Commission.
You see who the evildoers are?
If you don't buy health insurance, you go to jail.
I think the legislation is very fair in this respect.
Am I off the deep end here? What country have I grown up in?
This has been the most transparent administration that we have seen, perhaps in the modern era.
Things that make you go,
You want to go to a naturopath or a homeopath? No. That's not approved by the government.
Where's freedom?
Taking on bureaucrats and corporations that would stand in the way of health freedom and making sense out of medical propaganda. The voice of health, freedom, and liberty. Here's Robert Scott Bell.
Welcome to your radio transmission detoxification, your broadcast detox of the week, and it is the Robert Scott Bell Show, otherwise known as the United States of Health Talk Radio, rocking the health world all over these United States and the world, in fact. Remember Desiree Jennings, the Washington Redskins cheerleader ambassador? And we covered that story like nowhere else in media with my dear friend Dr. Rashid Buttar, who was one of the treating physicians after she had been diagnosed at Johns Hopkins. And, of course, now they still, a year later, attack and say, oh, it wasn't real. She was faking it. Really? Really? Is that what you think? Or are you just shielding yourself from the reality that more Americans, more people around the world are recognizing the bogusness, the scientific black hole that is the flu shot paradigm, along with other things. And they're trying to keep that out of the media's attention and trying to distract from it, trying to discredit those of you who know the truth and the facts and are acting on it. Thank God you're there doing it. And so Dr. Buttar is fresh off an appearance on ABC's 2020, where they cut most of the good stuff off onto the floor, of course. He's got a great new book out called The 9 Steps to Keep the Doctor Away, climbing the charts, topping some of the charts, and it's a book I want you to get. I've got it linked through on my show notes at robertscottbell.com. You can click the link right from the text, and you'll see it. And I hope that you'll do so. But fresh off of ABC's 2020, my dear friend, Dr. Rashid Buttar joins me here on the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Hey, Robert, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. I was surprised that they went back and tried to dig up some Desiree Jennings stuff after a year plus. And, you know, they're still claiming a lot in the so-called pharmaceutical medical agenda that she was just faking all of her symptoms.
Yeah, you know, it was interesting, the 30-minute segment that they did when they did the commercials. They had all the pharmaceutical company advertisements too, and I got a lot of emails back saying that, of course, when a pharmaceutical doesn't work, it's because the patient was unresponsive, but they make it out to be that when a pharmaceutical or a vaccine or something like that causes a damage, it was all in the person's head.
Yeah, it's just made up. And, of course, this was a horrific event that occurred in the life of a vital, young-type cheerleader, very, very athletic, and suddenly she had all of these strange neurological conditions, and we certainly have seen the video, we've seen the interviews, and she eventually went to see you, and she had such radical and dramatic improvement in a short period of time. Of course, you and I talk on radio and off the air about it, that, you know, she still had a ways to go, and then she changed course for whatever reason. And I think that's part of the rest of the story that I don't know if people are really getting.
Yeah, her exact words to me on her last day in my office, which was December 1st, I believe it was, November 30th, December 1st. It was when 2020 was there. And by the way, she hadn't had any problems for almost 4 weeks. She had been walking. She had been probably seizure convulsion-free for she may have had 2 or 3 in like a 4 or 5 week period where she was having 60 a day when she came to me. She'd been walking all over the clinic that day. In front of 2020, she was doing it fine, and then she felt like she needed to go out in a wheelchair. And her exact words to me, which were very interesting, was she said that her attorneys, who were looking at a possible case against Hopkins and some of these other places that she had been to, that her attorneys had told her she was getting better too fast. And plus the drive was a very difficult drive for her because she couldn't fly, and the constant stimulation of changing scenery as she's driving would be very stressful for her. So she had to lay in the back of the vehicle and keep her eyes closed when she would travel. And for those reasons, she told me that she wanted to start going to see a neurologist closer to where she was, and I said that was fine. But the biggest reason she told me was because her concern with her attorney's concerns was she was getting too much
too quickly. Yeah. And of course, for those of you who understand the legal profession, it's all about image and appearance, and they can twist facts all over. And so I perceive that if they were thinking, wow, if you get well so fast, then they'll say you really don't have damages. It really didn't happen. It wasn't real.
Right. That's exactly right. And the other problem was that she was told that this would take a long time. I didn't know how long. I thought that if we were lucky, I told her that when her husband and I had discussed this and when we first started her treatment, there was no talk about how long it was going to take. But it was then discussed that once she started getting better, that she was showing rapid progress. But this certainly was going to take a lot longer than we thought.
This goes fast. Stay with me. We've got a break here. More from Dr. Rashid Buttar on the Desiree Jennings case. Also more from his book, The 9 Steps to Keep the Doctor Away, next on the Robert Scott Bell Radio Show.
Tired of the same boring health talk radio? Then turn up the volume and break off the knob. This is the Robert Scott Bell Show.
All right, rocking the health world with my dear friend Dr. Rashid Buttar, Buttar. If you need to look it up, follow up now with Dr. Buttar here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Your appearance on ABC's 2020, I assume they left a lot of interviews with you on the so-called cutting room floor.
Oh, there was, certain segments that I wish that they had been on the air. I'm going to see if we can still get them, but there was no way they would air those things simply because it embarrassed them and made them look like it made them look bad. It painted them in a bad light. I'll give you an example if you want on one of the segments that we brought up. They were talking about, do you remember the segment when he says about the videos being not scientific, and my response was, who said that the videos were scientific? And he said, well, that's where they stopped it. That's all they aired. But the interview went on, and he says, well, what do you say to the people the doctors out there, the research out there, that say that you're nothing but a charlatan and this is all nonsense and phenomenal marketing and witchcraft, and I think he called it a snake oil salesman. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And I said, excuse me, what do you mean not scientific? And he says, the prevailing scientific model. And I said, and what is the prevailing scientific model? And he says the evidence-based medicine model, the only model that's scientifically based. And I said, excuse me, I just want to make sure I understand correctly. Are you talking about the same evidence-based scientific model consisting of the double-blind, placebo-controlled, crossover, multi-centered trials? And he says, yes. I said, the same multi-centered, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials that led to drugs such as Vioxx being approved and then killing 55,000 people before the FDA took the drug off the market. Is that the type of scientific evidence you're talking about?
Oh, my God.
And he just sat there, and he stared at me, and he goes, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I just want to be clear about that.
You busted them up good on that. No wonder they didn't show that. It was kind of like when I was interviewed on Russia Times the other day, and they were asking me, you're a homeopath. What do you have to say about this against all these scientists? And I just simply brought up the hundreds of millions of dollars of scientific misconduct due to the conflicts of interest at that level, and as if that doesn't exist to these reporters.
Right. Well, we know who controls the reporters, so.
Yeah, well, as you said, in between each segment, drug commercials. You gotta push those drugs, man. We're not selling enough drugs.
Yeah, it was interesting. And the funny thing is that I went back to the blog on 2020 just to kind of see, because I was interested in seeing whether they put the book information on there. For instance, when they filmed this whole story, the charges against me from the medical board were still there. Well, instead of showing that all those charges were dropped, what they said that I was reprimanded. They didn't even show the original 8 charges, essentially accusing me of nothing less than murder. And all those things dropped. Why? Because the medical board was in a quandary. I had put them basically in a forced checkmate. They had no other place to go except for to show that this was all bias and these were all lies. And so they just wanted to drop it before it got in front of a real judge. But they didn't talk about that on 2020. They just said that I was reprimanded by the medical board.
It's typical. And, it's kind of like, the instantaneous results that do not happen within the medical field. To see, like, for instance, we talk about Desiree. If we put a percentage on it, I'll just do it as a radio guy right now, like 90% better, so rapidly. Yet, of course, you knew that there was more to go. There was more detoxification to occur. There was more re-nutrification that needed to occur because of what had happened to her. And, in fact, that one shot may not have been the only cause of her problem, but there may have been an accumulation over a lifetime of exposures to different things, including heavy metals such as mercury. But those are never considered in the sound bites of media who are, basically, as we call them, lapdogs to the pharmaceutical establishment.
That's absolutely right. I mean, there was an accumulation, as you said. I mean, that shot probably was nothing more than the straw that broke the camel's back. In fact, her husband, even on the segment, said that she was 90% improved from the woman that he brought her to me until he stopped bringing her to me, or she stopped coming, which was basically 2.5 months. And nobody said that she was totally cured. And God's the only one who makes a cure. You and I would know that. God's the only one who cures. We're nothing more than conduits in trying to help get that work done to help clean the body out. And my stance has always been to her that I don't know how long this is going to take, but it's going to take months, if not years, to get you back all the way. Yeah. And she was making far more rapid progress than I ever thought would be possible. I figured that by Christmas I would have her seizure-free. I didn't know that by middle of October.
I remember. We talked. We were both stunned, happily so, about the progress. Absolutely. Right now, finishing up with Dr. Rashid Buttar. Dr. Buttar, as you mentioned too, Desiree Jennings' husband acknowledged that after seeing you, she was literally 90% better in a much faster, let's say, pace than anybody expected, even you. And yet she left early and now is still probably dealing with some things. But we acknowledge, too, that the lawyers basically said, hey, you're getting well too fast. This might not be good for a lawsuit if we were going to file one. Did they actually ever do that? Are you aware?
I don't know. I have not followed up with them except for in a couple of phone conversations where we just talked about her condition, but I have not discussed that with them, so I really don't know where that status was. Okay.
Well, 9 steps to keep the doctor away is where I want people to go now. And 9, I mean, that's not too bad. It's not unreasonable. I think people would digest this very rapidly and see some life-changing things occur getting your book.
Well, the book is based on 3 foundations, 7 toxicities, as you and I have discussed previously, and then, of course, the 9 steps. And it really is a very quick read, although the book is 360 pages. People have responded that it was one of the most unusual books they read because they didn't expect it to be so entertaining and so captivating. And that was one of the things I wanted to write to, is to get this information in a manner, presented in a manner that would be compelling and interesting to people to hold their attention, because you and I both know that most health books are very dry, very boring. So that was
no. Now, if you're doing it, it's not going to be dry and boring, I promise you. Anybody gets a chance to see Dr. Buttar speak, the passion is oozing out. I mean, it's a laid-back, live Sunday afternoon on the Robert Scott Bell Show here, but we can get Dr. Buttar fired up in a second if we want. But anyway, here the information we want to get out to everybody today is such that there are not only tools available in books like this, but the steps are very simple. It's not rocket science, and in fact, the fact that the medical profession has tried to turn everything into rocket science has been to our detriment, as opposed to the things you're bringing to everybody.
Yeah, and this is the whole point, Robert, is that the body is the most unique piece of machinery that's ever been developed. Is name me one piece of machinery that the more you use it, the better it gets. The human body, or the physiological system that God created, is the most balanced and the most optimal and the most self-healing that there is. We have to just get out of the way. We have to take the garbage out. And that's a lot of what the book talks about, and gives the 9 steps that they can do to enhance those processes that were innately developed within our own physiology to help us stay healthy and to recover from disease or discourse.
Yeah, and this is so important to get out there, especially now we're looking at the Obamacare descending, if this continues on, over everybody, this mandate. It used to be at least you had some level of right to refuse these medical insurance plans that would force you into treatments for which had nothing to do with the reason you were ill. And, now Obama is defending this as a tax. He always said, it's not a tax, it's not. Now that they're being sued by states and everybody's saying, oh, it is a tax, it's constitutional. As a physician, how do you see this Obamacare coming down for you?
Well, I see it. I actually don't look at it from what it's going to do to the profession as far as what it's going to do to me. I look at what it's going to do to mankind, and I think it's probably the greatest abomination in the history of medicine and in the history of the United States myself.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on that. I talk to physicians from all around the country, and I have yet to find the one that says, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. Not even one that's neutral on it.
Yeah. pretty much everybody knows that you start doing something like this, you're taking away all the incentive from all parties concerned to do anything. And, it's definitely going to take it back down to the level of health care that is normally associated with, socialistic medicine. In fact, right now in the 7 most industrialized countries in the world, the U.S. is already ranking the last, and God knows where we're going to go now from there.
Yeah, you think it can't go any further down, just watch. But I see there's a movement back towards liberty, although it's still small, but it's growing. And I know you're part of that as well, that looks to free up the physicians and non-physicians alike to help people as we're designed by God to help each other.
Yeah, I mean, common sense, nobody has a monopoly in common sense, right? So anybody who's promoting common sense and eating healthier, abstaining from things that are toxic, I don't understand what the big thing is. But, of course, the big deal is that it imposes upon the pharmaceutical industry, because the more people that get healthy and the more people that are guided the right way on how they can take care of themselves, the more loss of profits will be the consequence for the pharmaceutical industry, and they don't want that. And, of course, their dogs that are engaged to ensure that, like the governmental agencies, will do everything they can to prevent that.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Dr. Buttar, it's always a pleasure to have you on board here with your passion, your mission in life as well, very aligned to what we do here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. I hope that everybody takes advantage, goes to get 9 steps to keep the doctor away. I have links up at robertscottbell.com, link through there, and, of course, we got linked through to Dr. Buttar's website as well. Those of you
Robert, you do know the book that hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list and USA Today and
yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it was climbing the charts very, very rapidly. I'd like to see it stay there, and that's why I want everybody to know about it and continue to buy it for yourself, buy it for your friends. This is a gift that will keep on giving.
I appreciate that.
All right, Dr. Rashid Buttar, we'll be doing more with Dr. Buttar in the future. You can count on it. We've got a lot of healing to do. And not as much time yet to do it, but we've got more time coming. I promise you there'll be announcements on that in the near future. DrButtar.com as well, DrButtar.com, and the link through at robertscottbell.com. Thank you, Rashid. I appreciate it.
Okay, Robert. Have a great weekend.